General Audience number 120 of July 25th, 1984. We take up again the reflections that had the purpose of linking Humanae Vitae with the theology of the body as a whole. The encyclical does not limit itself to recalling the moral norm concerning conjugal life, reconfirming it in the face of new circumstances. When Paul VI made a pronouncement of the authentic magisterium through the encyclical in 1968, he had before his eyes the authoritative statement of Vatican II contained in the Constitution Gaudium et Spes of 1965. Not only is the encyclical aligned with the conciliar teaching, but it also constitutes the development and completion of the issues raised there, particularly in regard to the questions of the harmony between human love and reverence for life. Gaudium et Spes, paragraph 51. On this point, we read the following words in Gaudium et Spes, quote, "The Church issues the reminder that a true contradiction cannot exist between the divine laws pertaining to the transmission of life and those pertaining to fostering authentic conjugal love." Ibid. The pastoral constitution of Vatican II excludes any true contradiction in the normative order, which Paul VI confirms on his part while seeking at the same time to throw light on this non-contradiction, and thus to offer reasons for the relevant moral norm by showing its conformity with reason. Humanae Vitae does not, however, speak so much about non-contradiction in the normative order, but rather about the inseparable connection between the transmission of life and authentic conjugal love from the point of view of the two meanings of the conjugal act, the unitive meaning and the procreative meaning. Humanae Vitae, paragraph 12, which we've already discussed. One could dwell for a long time on the analysis of the norm itself, but the character of both documents leads rather to reflections that are at least indirectly pastoral. In fact, Gaudium et Spes is a pastoral constitution, and Paul VI's encyclical, with all its doctrinal value, tends to have the same orientation. It is intended, in fact, to be a response to the questions of contemporary men and women. There are questions of a demographic and consequently socioeconomic and political nature in relation to population growth throughout the world. These are questions that come from the field of particular sciences and hand in hand with them, questions of contemporary moralists, moral theologians. They are above all questions of spouses, who already stand at the center of the attention of the conciliar constitution, which the encyclical takes up again with all desirable precision. We read there, in fact, quote, "Granted the conditions of life today, and granted the meaning that conjugal relations have with respect to the harmony between husband and wife and to their mutual faithfulness, would not a revision of the ethical norms in force up to now seem to be advisable, especially when it's considered that they cannot be observed without sacrifices, sometimes heroic sacrifices?" Humanae Vitae, paragraph 3. In the formulation above, it is evident that what concerned the author of the encyclical tries to face the questions of contemporary man in all their weightiness. The importance of these questions calls for a proportionally weighed and deep answer. If, therefore, it is right on the one hand to expect a penetrating treatment of the norm, one can also expect that no less weight be given to pastoral arguments concerning more directly the life of concrete human beings, of precisely those who raised the questions mentioned at the beginning. Paul VI always had these persons before his eyes. The following passage, among others, is an expression of this concern. The teaching of the Church on the regulation of birth, which promulgates the divine law, will easily appear to many to be difficult or even impossible to observe. And indeed, like all great beneficent realities, it demands serious engagement and much effort, individual, family, and social effort. More than that, it would be impossible to observe without the help of God, who upholds and strengthens the goodwill of men. Yet, to anyone who reflects well, it cannot but be clear that such efforts ennoble man and are beneficial to the human community. Humanae Vitae, paragraph 20. At this point, the text no longer speaks about non-contradiction on the level of norms, but rather about the possibility of observing the divine law. That is about an, at least indirectly, pastoral topic. That it should be possible to carry out the law belongs directly to the very nature of law, and is therefore contained in the framework of non-contradiction on the level of the norm. Still, the possibility understood as the feasibility of the norm belongs also to the practical and pastoral sphere. In the text quoted, my predecessor speaks precisely from this point of view. One can add a consideration here. The fact that the whole biblical background called theology of the body offers us, even if indirectly, the confirmation of the truth of the moral norm contained in Humanae Vitae, and prepares us to consider the practical and pastoral aspects of the problem as a whole at greater depth. Did we not draw all the principles and general presuppositions of the theology of the body from the answers Christ gave to the questions of his concrete interlocutors? Are Paul's texts, such as 1 Corinthians, not a little manual about the problems of the moral life of the first followers of Christ? And in these texts, we certainly find the rule of understanding present in Humanae Vitae that seems so indispensable in the face of the problems treated in this encyclical. Those who believe that the council and the encyclical do not sufficiently take into account the difficulties of concrete life do not understand the pastoral concern that stood at the origin of these documents. Pastoral concern means seeking the true good of man, promoting the values impressed by God in the human person. That is, it signifies applying the rule of understanding, which aims at the ever clearer discovery of God's plan for human love, in the certainty that the one and only true good of the human person consists in putting this divine plan into practice. Responsible parenthood. One could say that precisely in the name of the rule of understanding quoted above, see Theology of the Body, Audience 120, paragraph 1, the council raised the question of the harmony between human love and reverence for life, from Gaudium et Spes, paragraph 51. And Humanae Vitae recalls not only the moral norms binding in this area, but is broadly concerned with the problem of the possibility of observing the divine law. The present reflections about the character of the document Humanae Vitae prepare us to take up next the topic of responsible parenthood.